start this in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. We appreciate the support of Alaska Public Media in allowing us to bring you hangar flying. This evening, we are pleased to have David Karalunas on our show. David has been leading the Federal Aviation Administration's Compliance Philosophy Focus Team. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mary. Glad to be here.
Can you start telling us exactly what the new compliance philosophy is?
Certainly. It's an FAA-wide effort to find and fix safety problems in the National Airspace System, or NAS, as efficiently and effectively as possible while conserving FAA enforcement resources for the more serious, reckless, and intentional types of deviations.
The program is relatively new. Why is the FAA trying this new approach?
Well, actually, it's an approach that flows from years of experience with the Part 121 or commercial aviation field and lessons that we've learned through the Commercial Aviation Safety Team and other groups that has proven that sharing of safety information to find and fix problems before they become events is the way we can do even better at what's already the safest aviation system in the world. But of course, commercial aviation is the safest, and they have the most rigorous rules to follow and the best information sharing. And we're just trying to bring some of that approach to Part 135 and Part 91 and try to improve safety throughout the NAS.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. The FAA has been making efforts to achieve that just culture, as you mentioned, in commercial operations, and they focus on a more holistic view or a systemic picture rather than just an individual decision or an action. Is this the general aviation application of just culture?
You could certainly see it that way, and just culture is something that we're working to increase the penetration for throughout the aviation system, both inside and outside the FAA, actually. And just culture requires an understanding of each player's role in events and taking responsibility for things and fixing them rather than focusing on blame or punishment. And you know, we have a culture shift that we're going through both within the FAA and in industry to get more toward that understanding and taking of responsibility and fixing the problem rather than focusing on evidence and blame and punishment.
So the compliance philosophy applies to commercial operators, commercial pilots, and general aviation pilots, correct?
The compliance philosophy is actually an FAA-wide approach that applies to all parts of the FAA that exercise regulatory authority. So folks overseeing airports, commercial and space transportation, as well as the folks in flight standards that deal with pilots, companies, mechanics, air agencies, all across the aviation environment.
So how would it be applied differently to commercial operators versus private pilots?
Well, as you probably know, as we start from Part 91, we have the basic rules that we have to follow, general operating flight rules, and as we progress through the stages of complexity in aviation, we have Part 135 for air taxi and Part 121 for air carrier. And federal law, the statute that we work under, requires the highest level of safety in the public's interest for air carrier operations. But in Part 91 for recreational or general aviation flying, that requirement's not there. We all have the same requirement to follow the rules, but with bringing these concepts of information sharing and proactive management of safety risk management, we're trying to bring the approach to general aviation as well, and the expectation that folks actively manage their own unique risks. So as we've seen from your hangar flying show in years past, where we've talked about changes in the type of operation, like from floats to wheels to skis, or doing something very unique off airport, For example, these are operations that have unique risks and maybe using unique equipment that are not specifically described in the rule. And we expect each operator, each company, each pilot to be managing those risks even in the absence of a specific rule.
And where could somebody go to find out more about the compliance philosophy, whether it's a pilot or a mechanic or an operator?
Well, we have set up a short URL at faasafety.gov. I'm sorry, flashing back to my old career in aviation safety, faa.gov/go/CP for compliance philosophy. And we have our key policies there, and we have the brochure, the compliance philosophy and airman rights brochure that most folks in general aviation will be seeing first as far as interacting with us on compliance philosophy.
Great.
And
oh,
can I show it to you?
sure, absolutely.
So we have this nice little trifold brochure, and we're going to have them on the counters at offices, and you may see them at a safety meeting or aviation event. But if there is some event where an individual interacts with an inspector and there's any sort of investigation or questioning going on, we expect the airman to receive one of these brochures with a brief description of why we're having the conversation. And it lays out the compliance philosophy and how it works.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. David, we'll look forward to having you on our next program, and we'll learn some more about the compliance philosophy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've learned something and you know to be on the lookout for brochures about the new compliance philosophy with the FAA. Until next time, fly safely.